What we're trying to do is develop high-level events that at venues like the Millennium Biltmore that are steeped with political history and have 4 very seasoned political communicators talk about their jobs.
Well, 2 reasons for being here in Los Angeles with PRSA. One is I love Los Angeles, having grown up here and spent my early years in my political life here in Los Angeles. So it's a little bit of coming home for me and celebrating the profession and being with people who really are making it happen in the city of what's new and what's next.
For me, it was really an opportunity to come back to my hometown and meet a lot, and generally, the young people who come to events like this and kind of talk to them about how you find a career path.
I think one of the reasons Mrs. Obama has been so successful is that she herself has not changed from the person that she's always been in order to be First Lady. This is a person who held herself to very high standards throughout her life and knew that there would be high expectations in this role and was prepared to meet them. And I think that that comes through when you see her at a public event, that she's spending time doing something that she thinks is important and that she knows that through this platform she can have an impact on. And so I don't actually think that you can play to the expectation game. You really have to play your own game.
A lot of what the conversation is going to entail, I think, is going to be about how the media landscape and the communications landscape has so radically changed over the last 5, 10, 15 years.
When Dave and I were involved in the '88 campaign for George H.W. Bush, nobody had cell phones. A fax was high tech for us. And we have had to adapt in the communications field year after year to all the new converging technologies until your eyes cross.
So the unexpected happened.
The unexpected. Well, for us it happened on March 31st of the first year when President Reagan was shot. It tends to ruin your day. Nancy Reagan and I jumped in the limo and went right to the hospital as soon as we got the word. We get there and she looks at him and he said, "Honey, I forgot to duck." I was standing on one side and Mike Deaver and Ed Meese and Jim Baker were over here. And as they got to them, the gurney stopped and they're looking down at him like this. And he pulls this thing off his face and looks at them and he said, "Who's minding the store?" Essentially, what he wanted to do was get a message out that reassured people. And he gave us the fodder to do that. And it was, you know, it was a horrible, magical experience that taught you a lot about how to react with grace under pressure like that.
To be able to share my experiences, having gone to the White House and working for Mrs. Bush in the first term of 43's administration, and kind of reflecting on the experiences that I had there, both highlights and challenges and opportunities. For me, my experience at the White House was September 11th. You know, that was going to be a big news day for us in the East Wing because Mrs. Bush was going to testify before Senator Kennedy's committee on the education summit that she had hosted that summer. And so, of course, history changed between the time we departed the White House and the time we arrived at Senator Kennedy's office when the first plane had struck the first tower. And then by the time we got to the Hill, the second plane had struck. So best laid plans of a testimony and having a conversation about education completely went out the window because we were then in response mode to what had happened.
But I think it is a huge mistake to try to make someone into someone they're not. And George Bush followed Ronald Reagan. He followed the great communicator. One of the challenges we had was that he would be the first to admit he was not an orator. He was very good at small group meetings. He was very good at the give and take with media, not in the very formal East Room press conference vehicle, but in the small, intimate kinds of conversations that you might have in the press briefing room. Every time we would send him a speech that sounded a little Reagan-esque, meaning a whole lot of, intense rhetoric, we'd get it back saying, "No thanks, this is too flowery, this is not me." And we learned to adapt to his style instead of us trying to make him adapt to what we thought was, you know, kind of oratorical excess.
Tonight's event, Presidential Perspectives, has been one of the most successful events I think that we've had. We got a very world-class view of what it was like behind the scenes in the White House during 4 different administrations.
I thought the panelists were terrific. They were funny, they were interesting, but I think they were also, most importantly, they were practically helpful. And a lot of times you do panels like these and you get one or the other. You get a lot of fun, neat war stories, or you get solid, practical, workable advice. And the really great thing about these 4 panelists is we got both. And as near as I could tell from watching the audience, that they really responded to it also.
It's one of our best attended events ever, and the panel was just, I was riveted. Everybody was riveted.
I think it was really incredible that they joined us tonight, and I think so many of the stories that they shared really gave many of us who don't necessarily work on that high profile of a stage some insight that it's possible for us to excel and to create really some high profile opportunities for ourselves.